School's out for the summer, but we are always learning and growing spiritually. This month, with the help of one of the top 5 communicators in America. The theme of Andy Stanley's book is very theological in the name, very deep and wide as we unpack the pages of the grace of God. I'm sure, Andy, it's going to be another bestseller.
I hope so. I'm about to send my first son to college, so we really hope so.
I can relate. Today we're going to hear a very juicy real-life story that points us to this truth. Grace is the vehicle God uses to ensure that we get precisely what we do not deserve.
That's right. Mercy is not getting what we do deserve, but grace goes beyond mercy. Grace is I'm going to receive what I know I don't deserve. And obviously for those of us who are Christians, we understand that in some sort of spiritual way. But as we're going to see in this story, sometimes practically, sometimes God reaches into our lives and gives us what we don't deserve. That's grace.
Judah, one of the 12 sons of Jacob.
Right.
I forgot even that he was the one that suggested they don't just murder Joseph after throwing him in a pit, but they get some money out of the deal.
Right. Judah apparently had emerged as the leader among these brothers, and most of your audience knows the story of Joseph, the coat of many colors, thrown in the pit, sold as a slave to Egypt. Judah has his own story that parallels the story of Joseph, and he's an extraordinary example of God giving to someone precisely what they don't deserve. And when you know the story of Judah, you almost want to raise your hand and say, wait a minute, God, you chose the wrong guy. In fact, one of the reasons I think this story is historical is this is not the way a storyteller would have written the story, especially that day and age.
Well, after the Joseph story, the beginning,
right,
Judah went on to more horrible deeds.
Right. As you read the book of Genesis, you read the story of Joseph, and then the book of Genesis takes a detour into the life of Judah. And Judah went on to have kids. He had death in his family. He became a deceiver just like his father, to the point where he almost had an innocent person burned at the stake or put to death, a woman. She comes back and says, uh-oh, you know, and sort of outs him a little bit.
Oh, let's flesh it out.
It's a pretty juicy story.
Because the law said that if a husband dies,
right,
and there's a sibling, a brother, he has to become the new husband.
The new husband,
if he's
right,
been.
right.
And that had happened for 2 of
right.
Judah's sons, and they both died.
Yeah, both Judah's sons died, and so he's got this daughter-in-law that he's supposed to take care of and provide for. And Judah, which was against the customs of the day, much less just not the right thing to do, ignores her and does not fulfill his obligation.
He withholds the 3rd son.
Right.
He was probably the only one left.
Yep.
He thought, I don't want him going with her. He'll be a goner too.
Right.
Shelah, how would you say his name? Shelah?
I don't try to say Old Testament names.
Yeah. Well, that's the guy. So, womanly wiles come to the fore.
Yeah, she deceives Judah. And she dresses up like a prostitute, lures him in, they spend the night together, and the humorous part of the story is all she wants in exchange for her services is a goat, and so I guess that was the payment. He says,
he didn't happen to have one with him?
Didn't have a goat with him. He was a goat. He didn't have a goat with him. He says, I'll send you a goat. She says, well, in the meantime, I want to take something from you.
As security.
As security that you're going to pay me for my services. And so she takes his signet ring and his cane or his staff that represents his authority.
Now, I happen to have, in our house, a very meaningful cane, walking stick, that was given to Charles Davy Brown, who came to Canada in 1852.
Wow.
And after teaching 50 years of Sunday school, they gave him this engraved walking stick. It's got a ton of detail that I can't read even with my glasses on, but it's very special. And this is the family signet ring with the family crest on it.
Oh, wow.
And so it's very, very special. But neither of these carry the power
right.
of what Judah left with his, unbeknownst, daughter-in-law.
Right. Yeah, Tamar had dressed up and apparently didn't recognize her, hadn't seen her in so long. So he sends the goat to get his rod and his staff back and his signet ring, and she's nowhere to be.
Well, he didn't send the goat. He sent someone with the goat.
He sent someone with the goat. Thank you. Yes, he sent someone with the goat, and they can't find this temple or this prostitute who supposedly hangs out at the gate.
Because that's not her profession.
No, she had deceived him in order to try to get pregnant to be taken care of as part of this family. So very interesting story. People should read the Bible. They'd be surprised what they might find. But anyway, the story continues.
Well, she was found out. She was getting bigger tummy.
Right.
And everybody knew she didn't have a husband. The penalty in those days was death.
Right, because she had dishonored this man, Judah, who had already dishonored her. So they're about to probably burn her at the stake.
And you've got a very incensed father-in-law.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, what was he doing anything with a prostitute?
Right.
Son of Jacob.
Right.
Well, we can't unpack that right now. But so he's all indignant and reading the Righteous Act. And
Right.
then she produces
Yes.
a very interesting walking stick
Yes.
and signet ring.
Right. She says to a servant, the owner of this ring and this walking stick is the father of this child.
Ooh.
And they take it to Judah, and of course he recognizes that's my ring and my walking stick, and he is busted.
And you point out that this is a turning point for Judah.
Yeah, apparently something happened. We don't get all the details that we'd like, but there's a reason that the author of Genesis included this little sidebar, strange, disconnected story about Judah, because then we see Judah again at the end of the story of Joseph.
Wow. Yeah, this is all before the famine in Egypt,
Right.
which would now take them down to Egypt and not knowing that Joseph was alive.
Right.
And I'm going to read this scripture. You call it the third chapter in this treacherous tale. This is Genesis 49, verses 8 and 10 in the Message. You, Judah, well, we better back it up and say they get out of there with a ton of grace.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
Joseph could have been bitter and
Exactly.
vindictive.
Joseph recognizes his brothers. They recognize him as the prime minister of Egypt. And Joseph had every reason in the world to treat them the same way they had treated him, but instead he extends grace. He gives them exactly what they don't deserve. And how difficult that must have been for the brothers, especially Judah, because it was his idea to sell Joseph to begin with.
Mm-hmm. I always tear up when I read, Joseph actually leaves the room.
Right.
Seeing his brothers after I don't know how many
emotional.
years.
Right.
And just longing to see his family, even though they treated him so poorly. But then comes the end for Jacob, and he's giving a blessing to all these sons.
Right. Judah's father, Joseph's father, brings all the boys in, says something over each one of them, and then surprise, surprise, when he gets to Judah, here's what he says. You, Judah, your brothers will praise you. Your fingers on your enemy's throat while your brothers honor you. The scepter shall not leave Judah. He'll keep a firm grip on the command staff until the command staff, I love that, until the ultimate ruler comes and the nations obey him. This is the Father of kings. Right.
And ultimately the Messiah.
Right. The Messiah, Jesus, would come from the lineage of Judah, the
Lion of the tribe of Judah.
And again, if we were writing this story, who would we have chosen?
Joseph.
Joseph, right. Because he was the one who did everything right.
He did the right thing.
He followed the rules. He was the honorable one. He was the moral one. And so here's the twist, here's the surprise, and here's grace. God reaches down and disturbs the traditional fabric of the story, as we understand story, that the good guy always wins, and decides to choose Judah, not even the oldest son, Judah, from which to bring about Jesus.
Yeah, and the oldest son would be the one in line for the best blessing.
You would expect it to be Joseph or the oldest son. God chose Judah. Why? Because God is a God of grace, not just in the New Testament, but in the Old Testament as well. He gave Judah exactly what Judah did not deserve or earn.
Oh, just the beginning of surprises. The law of sowing and reaping was thwarted by grace. Yep. And God keeps doing that. Well, Judah must have been surprised by grace. The chapter title is appropriate for that story. Well, it can be your story too. God's love has no limit. His grace has no measure. His power has no boundary known unto men. For out of his infinite riches in Jesus, he giveth and giveth and giveth again. Were you singing that? We want you to have this rich assurance and to experience it personally. We'd love to pray and lead you to the God of grace. You can call our prayer lines night or day, every day, any day. and you can enjoy all the stories Andy has told so engagingly, eye-openingly in this marvelous book. It's our thanks to you for your financial gift this month. Here's how to get the grace of God.
The dilemma of Christianity, the dilemma of all religion, is what do I do about me, and what do I do about my past, and what do I do about my failure, and what do I do about my sin? What if we really have fallen short? What if you're condemned before God? What if you don't measure up and you're going to be held accountable? Then do you want what's fair? Then do you want what's just? I want exactly and precisely what I deserve the least.
The Grace of God by author and pastor Andy Stanley is our thanks to you for your ministry support. To receive your copy, call 1-888-288-0003 with your best ministry gift. You can write to Crossroads in Canada or the United States, or make a secure online donation at crossroads.ca.